Our goal today is really to have a robust dialogue, to really come up with best ideas, best practices on how to work effectively across the C-suite in the ethics and compliance area. And as Tim has heard me say probably ad nauseum, you can have the best ethics and compliance program in the world on paper, but if it's written like a Soviet manual on how to fix a truck, and nobody wants to read it, and it's sort of off there in the corner and nobody invites you to lunch, then you don't really have a good ethics program. So one of the things we've found at AECOM is by this excellent partnership, which is always ongoing and always dynamic and always involves bouncing a lot of ideas, you can make ethics actually cool. And especially the younger generation of employees really enjoys, I think, participating in the program that we've set up.
Ethics is like how you should act. It's what you should do. And I have a quote that I think sums this up best in a moment, but it's what you should do. It's like doing the right thing is sort of basic to what we mean when we talk about doing ethics across the C-suite. Beyond what is legal. I mean, too many companies say, well, you know, we did what exactly was legal, and that's all we needed to do. And I think when we think about that, that's not the right way to look at it. From a communications perspective, we tend to think about it in terms of how it affects our reputation, because that's something that has tremendous value. We know that it is the largest and most important asset that every company has, and because we can't count it, people who work in finance don't know what to do with it, but we know it's the most important asset that we have. This isn't something that most people in business think about every day. It's the kind of thing that philosophers think about, but certainly not the sort of thing that you're thinking about on a daily basis. And I would argue that in everyday business life, without the benefit of hindsight, moral dilemmas are not easy to spot. So, you know, even worse than that is that we have selection bias that, you know, reasonable people, it's difficult for them to agree on an ethical dilemma. It could also be said, and I think this is absolutely true, that reasonable people often disagree on whether an ethical dilemma even exists. Like, I don't see anything wrong with that. And in fact, if you have 5 executives in a room and they're from 5 different parts of the world, it could be really easy for them to think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. How do we prime ourselves to look out for ethical dilemmas? This is a question that is something that has been very important to us at the Tuck School, and one of the reasons that we have a requirement in corporate responsibility and ethics in our program. And it turns out that practice is what makes ethical behavior happen, whether we're talking about MBA students or in the C-suite. Now, how does that practice actually take place today? For the most part, as a result of Sarbanes-Oxley, how do most people do ethics training in their company? You all know the answer to this question. Where does ethics training take place in 90% of companies today? In an online program that people race through in about 15 minutes to try to meet the requirement. That's how ethics training is done in most companies today, to try to meet what is the issue. And the best companies, however, what we see is that research, you know, suggests that people who practice enacting their values, who have an articulated response in advance of confronting situation, are better able to act in line with the larger objectives of the values of the company. That means you have to actually take them through an exercise. You can't give them an online training that goes by in about 15 or 20 minutes and expect that that's going to do any good.